everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout that I made using the My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit for November. November's kit featured a beautiful Christmas collection. It's called Candy Cane Lane, and it is by Prima and designed by Frank Garcia. And Frank Garcia always has the most beautiful papers and embellishments, especially I think for Christmas. And I like this collection a lot because it mixes together red and green, which are the colors that we always think of for Christmas, and some pink and some blue. And I like the way all those colors look together. For this layout, I'm using a pattern paper that was in the kit. I cut it in a circle, and then I cut a slightly larger circle out of some white cardstock, and I colored that with some Distress Oxide in spun sugar. I mounted the pattern paper on the pink circle, and I chose this pattern paper because it had a very subtle pattern on it, and then I'm pairing that with the paper you just saw, which is the big bold stripe. I really love that paper. I was thinking that the spun sugar Distress Oxide looked a little bit too bright. The pink color in the striped pattern paper has a very muted pink. It's not this super bright color, so I thought I would dull it down a little bit with the tattered rose Distress Oxide and try to have it match the color on the striped pattern paper a little bit better. I backed the cut file that says Christmas Traditions with some pattern papers. I cut out a little piece of green paper from behind where I'm going to be placing the circle on the layout. The reason that I did that was I wanted to use the green paper elsewhere on the layout. I don't know why I didn't just cut a circle from behind where I'm going to put the circle, but that was the only color that I was interested in, so that's what I cut out. Usually when I have a large element that's going to cover up a lot of the pattern paper, I do cut out the area behind it. I feel like you never know what you're going to need later on in the layout, so to be safe, I always like to save as much of the pattern paper as possible just in case it's needed later. This is a photo of my two daughters, my two nieces, and my nephew. They are the cousins in our family. And every year on Christmas, we take a photo somewhere near the Christmas tree. So it's a tradition in our family. That's why I thought that Christmas Traditions was the perfect title for this layout. I have the cut file backed, and I also have some stitching on the cut file. I absolutely love stitching on cut files. I just love the way it adds just that little bit of dimension and texture. And I have a sewing machine. I don't really use it. I should try to use it more often, but I will hand stitch on pretty much every cut file these days. If I don't stitch in the beginning, I usually go back and I end up stitching anyway. So I've learned that that's what I'm going to do. So I will usually plan to stitch right from the start. It can take a little bit of time to stitch, but I think it's worth it. I'm going to add a large banner going behind the large circle that's on the layout. I chose this pattern because I thought that it would go well with the other two patterns. It's not as subtle as the pattern paper I used to make the circle, but it's still not super bold. And I thought that it would look even better if I put a red mat all around it that would kind of separate it from the other two patterns. I didn't want to waste a lot of that pattern paper, of course, so instead of making one long banner out of the pattern paper, I just cut the small pieces of pattern paper I needed and I mounted them on the red pattern paper, which I have mounted on a long strip of white cardstock. And now I'm placing it behind the large circle, and I think that all those patterns work together. I do think it really helps that there are mats behind both the pattern paper on the banner and the pattern paper on the circle. I think that by separating all the patterns with those borders really helps everything be a little bit more readable. So now I have the banner and the circle complete. I have my photo mounted first on some white cardstock and then a very thin border of red cardstock. And now I'm just making sure that everything is lined up and straight, and I'm using my T-square to do that. I'm going to attach the Christmas Traditions cut file down to the layout. I'm using some ATG adhesive to do that. And because I did some stitching on the cut file, there's a little bit of dimension to the cut file The stitching on the back helps to pop it up just a little tiny bit from the page. So I don't pop it up further, but you certainly could put foam behind it. The only thing is then you have to pop up the word Christmas, and you would need some really thin foam to do that. It's totally doable, but I decided to just go with the dimension that was already there. I'm using a number of the embellishments from the kit. Of course, the absolutely beautiful Prima flowers. I have those in 3 different places on the layout. I also added some chipboard. I have a little banner underneath the photo that says Holly, Jolly, and Merry. And there's a little chipboard girl to the left of the photo. I'm going to end up moving that around a little bit. I also add some photo corners. Those photo corners were made from that piece of green paper that I cut out earlier. To draw attention to the photo, I like to punch out photo corners from paper that is one of the most prominent colors on the layout. So if I'm using gold, I'll make them out of gold. If I have some darker colors on the layout, I'll usually pick one of the darker colors. And I, like I said, think that that draws your attention to the photo. I use an EK Success photo corner punch to make those photo corners. I glued down the word Christmas using a little bit of gel glue. And now I'm attaching down those dimensional flowers to the layout. I am using some Liquitex heavy gel medium, and I like to use the matte gel medium for attaching things down. Now I have my flowers attached down to the layout, and now I'm going to add a few more embellishments. There was this little strip of striped paper, and I added that right on top of the photo. I moved the chipboard girl to the right-hand side of the layout, and then I used a chipboard tin soldier and an ephemera candy cane, and I placed those on the left-hand side of the photo. I put another die-cut candy cane on the upper right-hand side of the layout, and then a little chipboard candy cane on the letter T. There were quite a few images of presents in this kit, so I put 3 of the presents underneath the photo. And another thing that was in this kit was a lot of peppermints. I love putting peppermints on Christmas layouts. I have 3 different clusters of the peppermints. Now I have lots of embellishments placed on the page, but they are not attached down, so I started attaching down the presents. I wanted to pop up that center present. I thought that would add a nice element of dimension there, and I used a little bit of foam, and then I attached the pink on top of the blue and the red presents. And then I continued attaching everything down to the page. I put a little bit of foam behind the little girl on the right-hand side and the soldier on the left-hand side, and the rest of the elements I attached directly down to the page. I also added one more small red flower on the left-hand side of the photo. Now that I have all the major elements in place and I have attached everything down to the layout, I wanted to add a few more details to the layout. So you can see that I use some pink pearls and I lined the outside of the inner circle with those. And now I'm using some Pinkfresh Studio loose pearls. These aren't self-adhesive. I'm attaching them down with some glossy accents, and I'm putting those pearls on each of the 4 photo corners. I liked that touch of gold, and I thought it went well with the layout because there are some gold centers on some of the flowers. So I thought I'll add a few more touches. I added a small pearl to each side of the banner below the photo. I had one of the peppermints in the center of the O, but I decided that I didn't like it. It looked too busy. And then I added some really light pink pearls to the centers of the pink peppermints. And then after I had added the pink pearls, I added some red pearls to the centers of the red peppermints. And I love that little finishing touch. Like I said, absolutely love peppermints. I don't know what it is about them. I don't really like eating them, but I just love the way they look for holiday scrapbooking pages or decorations. I just think they're super pretty. I wanted to add a little bit of a finishing touch to the ends of the ribbon, so I again use those Pinkfresh Studio pearls. And those pearls are called metallic pearls, and they're in matte gold. Regardless of the season or the holiday, I love to embellish my layouts with florals and greenery. So for this layout, actually for this series of layouts for the November kit, I use a lot of pine branches. I used some dies from my stash. These dies were made by Memory Box. there were two different sets that I used, the Pine Needle Trio and the Pointy Pine Needle Sprigs. And then there are also some very small die cuts that I had left over from other projects that I incorporated into this layout. I cut out all of the pine branches, and then I used some Moxy embossing powder in metallic evergreen, and I embossed all of the pine branches twice. I always like to emboss twice. I think that it adds really nice dimension, and also the coverage and the color is a lot better when there are two layers of the embossing powder. And I didn't go too crazy with adding pine branches, so I had plenty left over for another layout. I'm adding some very, very tiny pearls to each of the Prima flowers. I use pink pearls on the pink flowers, and then I use some red pearls on the red flowers. And pearls are a staple in my stash. Over the years, I've bought pearls in many different sizes and many different colors from many different places. Sometimes I get pearls that don't have any holes in them from eBay, and other times I just use pearls that I find that have the holes. I find that they're available in so many different colors and sizes from craft stores if you take a look in the jewelry aisle. Next, I went back to the large red flower and I started adding a few more pine branches around the edge. I still had extras when I was done, but I thought that it needed a little bit more embellishing. One of the pine branches was long, so I broke it in half. And then after I used the top of it to tuck under the red flower, I rearranged the needles a little bit and I used the other half on another part of the layout. I just think that it's great when you could reuse parts of a branch that you've broken off, because it takes so much time to die cut and to emboss that I like the idea of using every last bit of those embossed die cuts. Now I'm adding even more to those flowers. I'm using some Opal glitter medium. This is from Hobby Lobby. They were having one of those 75% off sales, so I thought I would try it out, and I like the way it is very glittery, and there's also some shine to it as well. And I use a soft round paintbrush, and I add it to all of the flowers that are on the layout. That is the very last touch that I add to this layout, and here are some close-ups. Thank you so much for watching this video, everybody. I am so appreciative of you taking the time to watch this video, and I always hope that it will be useful for you and that there's something that you can use in your own layouts. Please take a look in the description box where you will find the link to the My Creative Scrapbook website. You can check out all the beautiful kits that they have this month, and you can purchase a subscription there if you're interested. This is the limited edition kit, but there are 3 other kits that are gorgeous as well. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.